Have you ever felt that quiet whisper inside, that nudge that says something needs to shift? Maybe it's that restless energy that shows up in the middle of the night, or that feeling that the chapter you're in has run its course, but you're not quite sure what comes next. We've been there, and our guest today knows that feeling deeply. We're talking with Brielle Friedman, a business coach, intuitive guide, and professional Latin dancer. She's someone who's managed to blend all the different parts of herself, strategy, creativity, movement, and soul, into a life and career that's both structured and free. What we love most about Brielle is how she's turned those quiet internal nudges into a way of living and teaching that helps other women do the same. She helps visionary women listen to their inner voices, bring their ideas to life, and take aligned, sustainable action. Today, we're going to talk about what it really feels like to be ready for your next chapter, even if you don't know what it is yet. How to follow your creative ideas without needing a perfect plan, and how to create from alignment, grounded, inspired, and fully you. So, if you're feeling the pull towards something more, this conversation just might be your permission slip to begin. Hi, Brielle. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Robin. Hi,
Hello.
Brielle. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to speak with both of you.
We've been excited all week waiting for this conversation. I just keep writing the words down that Robin has in her introduction because I think they appeal to so many of us. Those inner nudges, that feeling like it might be time to start something new. I feel like I get those every day, Brielle. Can we just start at the beginning and talk first about your journey and how you've been able to combine different parts of yourself into a career that supports both creativity and freedom? How does one do that?
Of course, I love talking about this. I think the biggest thing has been learning to listen to those inner nudges, like you said, and really learning for myself what feels like a full body yes, and getting super clear about why I want to say yes to it. And that has also really helped me say no to the wrong things or have the courage to say no to something because I know it isn't aligned and I know it isn't right. And that's definitely been a journey. I always wanted to dance growing up. I took some classes as a kid, but definitely wasn't on a path to pursue it at a high level. And when I went to college, I happened to see a flyer for an audition for a student dance group. And I was like, okay, it's my first week at college. This is what we're here for, is to try new things and get out of your comfort zone. I'm going to go to this audition. And I ended up getting into the group, and that sort of sparked just a whole new pathway for me. It became something that I really loved and spent more and more time doing in college. And at the same time, I ended up taking a really great entrepreneurship class my senior year at Brown. And Brown has a really strong entrepreneurship program. I took a class with a professor, his name's Danny Warshay. I still mention his book and this class. It was such a wonderful introduction into the world of how to present yourself and your ideas and talk about them with other people and have a vision and understand what are the things that go into bringing something to life and bringing it into the world in a real way. So a friend and I wrote a business plan. We went to all of these pitch competitions our senior year and ended up winning some seed funding. And I was really on track to move to New York after college and start this business with her. And something just wasn't feeling right. And I can still feel that in my body, even as I tell the story now. I just knew that wasn't the right thing. And I didn't know why. I didn't have the clarity that I have now or even a self-understanding at that age. But I knew deep inside I really wanted to pursue dance. And I didn't want to look back and think in 20 years, this is something I never had the courage to go and do and see where it would lead me. So I made the very difficult decision to say no to starting the company with her. And instead, I got a job in marketing. I was working for a travel company at the time and was in a management training program where you do a season of every part of the business. So again, it aligned really well with that entrepreneurship class. And I ended up leading their marketing department. I was there for 6 years and loved the job, loved the people I worked with, and eventually felt the nudge again that something wasn't right. I could feel it wasn't aligned. This thing that was really lighting me up wasn't doing it anymore. And I felt really conflicted about leaving. I had been pursuing dance on the side and training and competing and spending all my time doing this thing. At the beginning, I wasn't really good at. In my very early 20s, everyone was in the young professional world around me, and I was going to the dance studio every night after work and spending every weekend dancing, and I wasn't good. And I think people around me were like, what is she doing? What is she going to do with this thing? And so I really had to stay focused on my vision. And I had this difficult situation at work. I didn't know what to do. I ended up working with my first coach, and that's what got me into coaching. And it was such a life-changing experience. It totally changed the way I looked at the world and what I thought was possible and how I understood myself. And I made the very scary decision at that time to leave this job. And I didn't know what was next. And I didn't know that I was going to pursue dance or combine all of these things for myself. But I just started having conversations with specifically other women. Like I would go on LinkedIn and find someone that I thought was really interesting, who I had been watching from afar over the years and seeing what they were sharing. I remember seeing an Instagram story, and I just really connected with the woman who had done the story on some brand's account. She was talking about this piece of jewelry that she bought that she didn't even want. And there was something about the story that resonated with me. So I sent her a DM, and this was back in 2017. So I even feel like the social media world and the way we connect was a little bit different back then. But I just started asking women, what was your career like? How did you know these things were right for you? And finding examples out there in the world of people who were doing their own thing or who had pivoted their career or had a second life. And that's where it all started. And the more I've had the courage to listen to what is yes for me, the more I would say the universe has just showed up with these amazing opportunities and continued to show me that this non-traditional career path, doing all these things that I really love, as long as I'm connected to the part that I love and feel that full body yes, it just keeps working out. And so I keep following it.
What a story. I have to say, in listening to your story, I feel like the dance aspect for you was your meditation practice. That was the experience that really got you in touch with your body to be able to feel those deep emotions. And like it was almost that exercise that you used to be able to feel that nudge. Because my question as you were talking is like, how do you know what that nudge?
Yes, I think so. I feel like when I think of even how much I love to dance, I love movement and I love moving my body. And I do believe that dance is such a powerful modality because it's creative, it's totally spiritual, it's athletic, it has all of everything combined into one. I also focus on partner dancing, so there's a connection element there. And also for someone who wanted to be a dancer, for so long and spent so much time dancing, it took me so long to connect with my body as a dancer. And I also was always a performer. I was a competitor, but I've always performed. And there was such an emotional journey in connecting with myself, in getting comfortable being seen, in understanding my own insecurities and limiting beliefs. And I worked so much on that with my dance coach, who also, in addition to teaching me how to dance, really taught me how to go into all of that for myself, and was probably the first coaching experience I had. If you're preparing for a show or as an artist, if you're going to be seen in any way and put your work out there in the world, and also true with when you start a business, because that is your creative work, you're putting yourself out there, as you all know, that process of going through there to get to that goal is the journey you go through to reconnect with yourself and to heal these parts of yourself that have been banished and hold so much power for us once we are able to embrace them and love them. And so I agree with that.
And then did you start to understand that these nudges, and maybe this leads into us talking about how people can actually know when they're getting to that point where they have outgrown a chapter and they want to go to that next phase and they feel things and there may be whispers, but they don't know if they're actually whispers. So how would you describe that for somebody who may be at that point where they're trying to figure something out? But also, how did you start to recognize that this was something bigger, that you were receiving almost messages from your own soul or your spirit team or something like that? How did that become normalized for you?
So I think when it came to pursuing dance and creativity in a big way, I felt from a very young age that was something that the people around me hadn't been able to do fully for themselves. And the resentment it created, and I don't want to say necessarily negativity, but it was festering, right? And for myself, when I think back to myself in my early 20s, I was driven so much by this idea of I just don't want to recreate that. I don't want to pass this on to the people I'm around. I don't want to bring this into my future family. I don't want to bring this into my kids. Like I need to be the example of what I want to create. And even though I was very scared at that age, and didn't have any examples of people in my life who had pursued artistic careers or non-traditional pathways or non-traditional career paths. I was just so driven by, I cannot recreate this. I cannot pass this on. And I think the spirituality piece actually came much later for me. And I sometimes notice this with clients I work with, where once we tap into the creative part of ourselves, spirituality and creativity are connected. You cannot disconnect them. But I feel like for so many of us, we're drawn into creativity and then we find the spiritual aspect of that. And I'm a huge fan of the artist way, Julia Cameron's
Hmm.
work. And she just talks about that so much. And I love how she's like, it doesn't even matter if you believe in this. You don't have to believe in this. Just do the practices, do these things because they work. And I find that for myself in the beginning, I don't even know if I was connected to that. I've always had a deep sense of my own intuition and being able to feel things, and I've always been very perceptive. But I think I was just like, wow, I have this creative dream and I have to follow this. And then through that, I found the artist way. I also had a really good friend experience some pretty intense, serious illnesses, and she is the one who started looking for holistic health practitioners, and she introduced me to the first intuitive that I worked with. And so it was through her journey of not being able to find what she needed in the Western medical world that I started exploring more around intuition. And I think that was my permission slip to say, hey, I've always believed in something. I've always felt connected. I've always had these moments, even from a kid, where I believe an angel was with me or I was guided. I grew up in or was around communities that were almost like so intellectual at some points that it was really looked down upon. And I felt very judged for even raising my hand to be like, but I believe that something else is there. I believe we are connected. And I even think back to myself in college, and I feel like I've always felt connected, but it wasn't considered okay around me. And so I hid that. And then the more I just kept hiding it and being like, oh, I don't believe in this. I don't believe in this. And so that was my opening into that. And then the more I was pursuing dance, the more I was working for myself, the more I felt called to learn about tarot and take a tarot certification class or tarot training class. And I started meeting people and I was like, oh, I want to explore Reiki. I want to explore all these other things. So that's a long answer.
No, it makes sense.
It makes sense. And because I work with a lot of business owners or people who decide they want to work for themselves, I feel like their pathway is very similar, where the business is calling them, the creative project is calling them, and then through bringing it to life, we start to allow the support and spiritual guidance that is there for us, driving us forward, right? That is connected to our inner voice and those inner nudges, but it's like the permission slip we need in the beginning to start to acknowledge it.
I love how creativity can be that doorway, though, as you were saying, to spirituality. And if you think about it in its core sense, an artist of any kind is channeling. An entrepreneur who's creating a brand new business from scratch, right? They're channeling it. It has not existed before. So therefore, it has to come through their spirit from somewhere, and they are the vehicle to bring it into fruition. So I think that once people can connect with that passion that they feel, that love for this dream, this idea that they want to bring into reality, that's what gives them the energy and the drive to bring it forward and to stick with it. As Robin and I know, you got to stick with the dream and learn that it's coming through you. So you pivot and you follow wherever it's driving you. You don't try to do the opposite, But then that can be the seeker's opportunity to look for more. So where else can I find this inspiration and amplify this creativity to move myself forward? So I just love how you brought that to life and people to recognize within themselves that we're all channelers if we have a dream or a vision or something creative that we want to bring through ourselves.
Yes. And I feel like we do as people, there are two big signs that happen for us. Either we do feel that voice that keeps us awake at 3 a.m. or that idea that just keeps coming back, that feeling that, oh, I've always wanted to do this. And sometimes that voice also shows up on the other side of it of, oh, if only I had the time, if only I had the money, if only I was younger. And then I think we can also the other signs are feeling really annoyed by something or like annoyed by other people doing the thing that you really want to do.
I think
Yeah,
that's like bingo. Yes.
for
Yeah.
sure. If you're so annoyed by this person doing this thing, that is your biggest cue. That's your inner voice being like, hey, actually, we want to do that. And our soul came here to do that. There's a reason why you feel that way. So whenever someone says they're annoyed or they're burnt out or disinterested or they're jealous, those are huge signs where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is your inner voice. We just gotta.
You are so right. Those are really good signs if you're listening right now. And any of what Brielle just said, like those are huge pointers for you of where to go and what to do in terms of pursuing something that your soul is meant to.
How would you define, Brielle, then that internal, that little tug that you feel? I think we've all felt it, but how do you define that? And then how do you help people decide what to do with that?
So in the beginning, it's just about taking that little next step forward. So I am a big fan of using creative practices. I have a lot in my own life, but I share them with clients and I really get all of my clients to have a creative practice in the very beginning. So I'm a huge fan of morning pages from The Artist's Way, just waking up in the morning, writing out 3 long form pages. I also have clients journal all of the time, reflect on things, actually handwrite them. And a great tip for anyone listening is if you feel like you don't want to do it, set a timer for 10 minutes, set a timer for 12 minutes, and just let that timer run out. And it feels weird in the beginning, but by the end, you're like, oh my gosh, I want to keep writing. I find a lot of clarity through writing in terms of understanding what is this inner nudge for myself? What is my intuition saying? And then I have developed a way to connect that to my body. That's also something I work with clients on. In Western culture, we're just so disconnected from our bodies. That part takes a little bit more of time. I think back to myself in 2017, I started more intentionally thinking about these things. And my first coach who asked me, like, where do you feel this emotion in your body? I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I can't even connect to that concept. And while I have clients come in who are very familiar with IFS or very familiar with locating emotions in their body. Most of them, I would say, are also at that point where they're like, I don't even have an understanding for what you're asking me to do right now. So that's why I find specifically journaling and writing things down is such a great connector between the mind and the body. It starts to drop you into yourself. Music does that a lot too, right? So I use what I call an intuitive movement practice where we turn on music and I will hand select the songs depending on what we're working on because all music makes you feel different things. And then first you close your eyes so that your mind can quiet itself and there's no judgment stepping in around how you might be moving. But I find that's a really helpful way too to connect people to the inner guidance that they have is to use movement, to use music to allow yourself to just start to move in a way that feels good. And it doesn't take very long. It's like 2 minutes later, someone always is like, wow, this is actually what's here for me. This is actually the thing that I want to do, or I don't want to be doing this. Why have I been doing this for 7 years? That just happened to me recently with a client. It was so fast. And they were like, wow, I need to make a lot of changes because once we drop down into that voice and once you drop down into your body, like the wisdom is there for you.
How does that happen? Listen, music to me is one of the best spiritual practices that you can have, whether you're using that to get your day started in the middle of the day for a pick me up, to go to sleep. There's so much energy and frequency that comes through it. I'm so curious how that works for somebody with how you're guiding them with that. That's so intriguing to me, how you help someone through music and then tap into that voice. How does that work?
So I think it's the combination of actually moving as well. I do pair it with reflective questions, like the journaling. I run these workshops in LA. I've done them virtually too, just to give an example of how it works. So let's start with a theme. Let's say you do want to tap into your creative power. I just did a workshop like this recently. I'll start off by asking a few questions and do some free writing around it. But then I find that actually having everyone stand up in the room and putting on the music and getting them to move in their body starts to create a freedom in your physical self. And again,
Mhm.
we spend so much time, especially as women, making ourselves smaller. We're in the car, we're at a desk, we're on the subway, we're making ourselves physically much smaller. And so when we start to open that up, we're literally opening up the channel to allow spirit or the universe or source or whatever you believe to speak through you in the same way that we do when we ground in meditation or work with more meditative visualization practices. So that's how I find that works, is because it's the same thing, but it's in a medium that I have found is a little bit more accessible to someone who is finding spirituality or finding creativity or finding their inner voice for the first time. Meditation, I think, is actually a very difficult practice for someone who's never meditated. But most people, we write a lot. We learn to write very early on in school. We have to write papers. We don't always free write, or we don't always write with a pen and paper. But that's something where it's okay, if I have someone turn on a timer for 10 minutes, they can do it. If I have someone meditate, they're like, oh, I don't. And I get that. Like, it took me a lot longer to develop a meditation practice.
Yeah, I think with meditation, it feels like you have to learn how to do it. But with dance and movement, it's just such a natural way. Like you were saying before, we constrict so much within our bodies. We constrict our thoughts, we constrict ourselves. So, this idea of just allowing your body to relax and feel the energy and open back up. It makes perfect sense. That is the best and easiest. We can all do it in some shape or form. I love that.
My one other question to that is then, do you find that people can recognize the whisper?
Yes.
Because I think that's what I'm
Yeah.
getting to as well. I think we all can identify that voice. And when we first even started, it literally is a whisper. But I don't know that everyone can identify that. And so are you somewhat prepping them a little bit before they start moving and you're asking those questions? You may either feel it or you might actually hear something. You're giving them those clairs to be looking for.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I am. Yes, I will say you might feel a tingling sensation in your body, or you might get chills, or you might have this realization that you've thought of this before. You might hear a voice. I am prepping them in that way. I do find that pretty quickly, most people are connected to the intuitive pull or their inner voice, but there is a lot of fear around following it, listening to it. So, even people who tell me, oh, I don't believe in anything, that's all woo, like I'm logical. Once we're working on this, again, it's not a long period of time. We're together for 45 minutes, 60 minutes, but even they are able to very quickly tap into this intuition for themselves. But when it comes to the second part of what we do together is, okay, what is your next step? How do you actually take aligned action? How do you follow this? How do you start to create the safety within yourself and around you? It's all about permission giving. Like, how do you give yourself permission to follow this and to take some action here when you don't really know how to do it yet? You don't know where it's leading. And there are going to be a lot of voices that come in and a lot of other ideas. And people are going to have a lot to say about you doing this thing. It's going to trigger them. It's going to call up in them their inner voice that really is trying to speak through them, that they have also been taught not to acknowledge and to push down. And that's where we spend the most of our time in the coaching container with my private clients, is moving through that, because it's almost once you start to give yourself permission to follow that voice and take the next step, you keep getting scared. And so it's like we are constantly opening back up that safety and finding it within yourself and building a reference point of, what does this feel like? What does it feel like to create from a place of alignment? What does it feel like to create and move through the world from a place of joy? And for most of us, we weren't taught that way, right? We were taught that the world is a scary place and you have to do a job that you hate and this is just the way it is and life is unfair. And so it's drowning out those voices and replacing them with more supportive beliefs, new stories, and really grounding you into your vision and helping you believe that's possible and showing your nervous system, oh, okay, that did work out. That's what I find. And I do find it really helpful when people have an example of what that could look like. The more we have examples of other people in our lives doing the thing we want to do and it working out for them, the easier it is for us to be like, okay, maybe it's possible for me.
I think that's so true. I have to tell you too that when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I actually relate to your dance dream because I actually wanted to really be a dancer and I had no support for that. And I didn't trust it enough. I wasn't on a competitive team or anything like that, but I really loved dancing and wanted to do that actually more full time. But everyone was like, what would you do with that?
And it's so funny because I took ballet as a kid. My mom wanted me to do it. And I felt the opposite because I was so conditioned to do the discipline that it wasn't fun for me. I didn't feel the joy of it. I just felt, oh, I'm doing it wrong. So I didn't get that sense of freedom from dance. And I think that's why I've been a resistor of dance. I think I'm just realizing this for the first time. Thank
Wow.
you. Really, because I was being told to do it a certain way and I wasn't feeling I was doing it right. It was something that kind of I put a wall up in being able to really enjoy that.
It's a different perspective. Yeah. And so when you were talking about that, and I didn't realize probably that I was connecting in with spirituality on some level or something on a soul energetic level. And I still love dance, but I do often think, gosh, what would have happened had I trusted that? So I'm so in awe of you doing that. And what I wanted to also highlight is that when you probably saw that posting to join that club, did it almost feel like it was like highlighted for you? Because I find at those moments where you have the nudges that actually the universe is sending you messages. And if you're aware enough, you're seeing them. And it can't explain why that felt like such a pull for you. Like, this is the time. I wanted to just bring that up so that people who are listening, because I think there's so much good information in here, may start to recognize, yes, you can do all of these things and be aware of then when these signs come into your life.
For sure. The awareness piece is huge, just being even a little bit more open to something that comes into your life, a posting, a message, a post on social media, an email, whatever it is, and being like, oh, I kind of want to do that. I want to go there. And then immediately you feel the fear. Or I think that is very common. I remember seeing that table slip or that posting for the dance team, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so scared. But it was my first week of college. So I was like, that's why I'm here for. So I think just recognizing that fear, it doesn't mean anything. It just means you haven't done it yet. It's new. Maybe we have a lot of stories. We have a lot of stories for adults. And I would think teenagers and people in their young 20s around how if they're not good at it yet, they're never going to be good at it. And it's too late. And it's going to be so embarrassing for you if you try this thing and you're not good. That is the biggest thing we have to throw out as a culture. That is, yeah. So I did. I remember, I don't know if this is still the way that it is because now we have smartphones and the internet in a different way, but I'd go into the cafeteria and there were all these tiny little pieces of paper with different clubs having their announcements. And for whatever reason, this one around the dance team stood out to me. Well, there were a million other things that I could have done. So when you start to feel like, oh, I kind of want to do that, is definitely a sign that, oh, like the universe is actually sending this opportunity to you. And now all you have to do, your work, is to recognize it, say yes to it, and then calm your nervous system and move yourself through that fear that I think inevitably comes up until you've done new things over and over again. Then you're more comfortable with it.
And recognizing that the people around you that may not support you right away, it's because a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, it's because they have fear too for you. Like they know a certain way that works and they think they have that definition of, in quotes, success. And so therefore they feel they're helping and guiding you by telling you to go the more traditional way.
Yeah, their intentions
Their
are really
intentions
to
are
be
good. Yeah.
supportive. They're not trying to sabotage. I was thinking about when you were talking, Brielle, about how we've been trained to not be vulnerable. and how that 4-year-old is never afraid to go and like dance in the middle of the supermarket with their cowboy boots on. They're not afraid to be vulnerable, and how we're so taught into that. I want to ask, so for people who are listening that may have a very accomplished life and feel like there's no reason for me to be unhappy. I have whatever it is, a career, home, all the things that we've been taught are measures of success, but they're feeling that little tug as we've been talking about, and they're like, stop it, I'm good, I don't need to worry about that. It's just a moment of yearning maybe for something that I don't already have. And how many of us are guilty of that too? But how do you advise them to go from that feeling of yearning, that tug of maybe wanting to do something, to that next chapter? What I love about the idea of the next chapter is it doesn't mean you have to write a whole new story. It just means going to another level or another experience. But how do you talk to people when they say, I got this, but really I'm good. I really don't think I need to do that. And yet I have this feeling that I should go down this path.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that is so common. I think one of the things I'll say is it can be both. You can be so grateful for everything you have right now and the life that you have, the career that you have, and still want more. And that is a beautiful thing. Personally, I believe that our souls are here to expand, that consciousness is always expanding and we're always growing. And when we stop doing that, there's no reason for us to be here anymore. So I feel like that is something that once we get comfortable with the idea of this is a never-ending process in the best way, it's much easier to say, yeah, I love what I have right now and I love all of this. And also, I think there's something here for me and I'm going to explore that feeling of moreness. And I'm going to stay detached from the outcome. I think this is another thing too, with having that creative idea or having that desire. It's not necessarily leading you to a specific outcome. It's the process you are going to go through and your soul is going to go through in pursuing that goal or following that nudge that is going to lead you to the next thing. And that's endless in the best way possible. And I feel like when we're really connected to that, and really connected to that energy, it feels so expansive. It just feels this light that it continues to exist and exist. It's never ending, it's infinite. So that's what I would say is it's both. As humans, we are constantly expanding, we're constantly changing, we're constantly creating. And once we switch the mindset to having a clear destination, then it ends. There's no clear destination for any of us. There's no clear destination for whatever you're creating either. It's going to exist after you. It's going to continue to expand and have a life on its own. Even if it ends or it quote fails in some ways, it's still creating energy and it's still changing things. So just really getting comfortable with this idea of there's a reason why you have this desire. That is your soul speaking. And your soul is here to expand, and we all can feel connected to different parts of that. I think the other thing is creating space in our lives to follow things. Like so many of us are working, we have meeting after meeting, and then it's 6 p.m. or it's 7 p.m. We go home and we wake up and do it all over again. And that's a culture in which we've been taught. And so when we start to open up a little space in our daily life, in our weekly life, we start to get more comfortable with this idea that there's no fixed end goal. And we're able to then love what we have and continually be open to a new chapter unfolding and something else expanding for us that we just can't see yet.
Oh, God, I love that answer.
Me too.
That is so great because it's, again, I mean, I know we say this all the time, but it's like the antithesis of what we're taught, right? We're always taught to achieve the goal, to get to the destination versus letting go of the outcome. That one I'm writing down. That's
Totally. And it actually leads to something that you do talk about, which is balancing structure and flow, strategy and intuition. So, how does that look like for somebody if they wanted to start putting that into practice?
So the idea always comes from the inspired place, like we were talking about earlier. The idea is always connected to source energy. It's always something speaking through you. And so having some sort of practice for yourself around how you connect to that is a non-negotiable. You have to have that. So for me, I do morning pages. I don't do them every day, but I do them consistently throughout the week. I have dance, so I'm continually in my body. I spend a good part of my week teaching or rehearsing and being in the studio. So having a way to continually connect to yourself and connect to source is super important. And it can be anything. This is a slight tangent, but I get my nails done once a month. And yes, it's an act of self-care, but it's really an act of creativity. And I get so excited. I work with the same manicurist every month. We always come up with a design, and I can feel my younger self, my childlike self, getting excited to go to the salon and choose the colors and find inspiration. I'm creating a mood board over here just for my nails. And so bring that up because it's just, we have so many opportunities to find little ways to tap into source power and tap into our creativity throughout the day. It doesn't have to be like you take 2 hours and block this time off. Once you have clarity around what is that next step, like what is one thing I could do here? Ask yourself that question. What's one next step that I could take? And then that's where I bring in the strategy. So if I'm doing it for my business, then at that point, once I feel in my body, wow, this idea is really lighting me up, it's my soul speaking through me, then I'm like, okay, what's everything I know about marketing strategy, messaging strategy, positioning, packaging, digital marketing? What's all of the tools that I have as someone who has studied this and has a lot of expertise and experience in it? And then I start to really put together the strategy with what feels good in my body and merge those two. I'm not jumping to, okay, let me do every single thing I've ever learned about marketing strategy and make sure I'm hitting all of the marketing channels and come up with this really intense plan to get my idea out into the world. I'm not connected. I can actually feel that as I'm talking to you right now. That immediately disconnected me from myself and from source. So instead, it's, okay, what would feel good here? Here's what I'm really good at doing. What's one strategic thing I could do to move this idea into its next phase that actually gets me excited? Not all the things that would build a perfect marketing strategy and let me just do them and sit at the computer and make sure I do this. It's that bridging between the two of them. And that's what I do with clients all the time. And the biggest thing that I see, again, there's so much messaging out there around this is how you do it. You have to do it this way. And we just really throw all of that out. And then even for someone who has no business background, no marketing strategic formal background, they come up with a way that feels really good around getting their idea out there or moving the business forward. We just have to clear those voices.
That is so important. What you were speaking to, I think, is something we often forget, which is that being in alignment. You can't jump into something coming from a place of fear or despair or grief. You need to take that time. And that doesn't mean you have to go on a 30-day retreat to rebalance your chakras and everything. It can be as simple as you were saying earlier, playing that music, something that you feel that puts you in this mood, this spirit of joy, or even just tranquility, and starting there before you move forward and think about what the next step is.
And this is where I feel like IFS is so helpful. I know you guys did a podcast about this.
Yeah, for those who don't know what it is.
So the way I think about it is it's this idea that we have a true self. Maybe you can call it your highest self, your adult self, your connected self, and then all of these younger parts of yourself that have developed beliefs, usually like a limiting belief, or have been hurt or in pain because of experiences that have happened to us when we were very young or experiences that weren't necessarily conscious. And so we're all walking around with not just one version of ourselves, but many younger versions of ourselves that then we have also been taught a lot unconsciously to banish, to push down, to not listen to. And so there's this idea of protectors are coming in to try to protect us and manage our feelings and manage these different things. But I think the most basic way that I understand it and use it is there are many parts of ourselves, and all of them need to be parented with love and compassion and care. And so when we are going out into the world and bringing our ideas to life or exploring our ideas, all of these different parts of ourselves at different times are going to start to raise their hands with things that they're scared about. And that's where if we can really start to bring awareness to when they're raising their hands and build in our body, build an understanding in our body of oh, that's what this part feels like. This is me when I was 6 and this thing happened to me, and I don't even have to really consciously understand it, but this part believes that I don't get to have it, that it works out for other people, but I actually don't get to have the creative career. I don't actually get to have the family. I don't actually get to have the partnership. And in that moment, when I can stop throughout the day and pause and be like, wow, something else is happening here. Instead of going into that next meeting or continuing to work on my to-do list, I'm actually going to pause. I'm going to sit down on my couch or in my chair and just hold my body and hold this younger part of myself that is so scared and didn't receive at that moment the validation, the witnessing, the love that she really needed. And I'm going to give that to her right now. That's when we start to change that. And that's a huge thing for anyone who's bringing something into the world is we also have this idea that wants to come through us because it's opening up an opportunity for us to go back and do deeper healing for ourselves, for our lineage, and for all those that come before us. I think that merging too of like when you go out into the world and start to do these things, these parts are going to raise their hands. And it's our job to give our younger selves what we needed back then so that we can also give it to other people that we're going to impact. The friends we work with, the colleagues we work with, the families we have, if we choose to have them in the future, we're all connected energetically. We're all impacting each other. We're all influencing each other, whether or not we like to use that word or really go down that line. The reality is that you are influencing the people around you.
So IFS, which is internal family systems,
Yes.
is also like the way that you're explaining it. I also like to say, if you've ever seen the movie Inside Out, where they animate each part of those that you're talking, each part of yourself, and they pick several to highlight, they're using that for a child, but we have them as adults. And so to think about it that way, in the way that you explained it, I thought was so well. But just think about it as an adult, that you're having all of these different parts of you raise their hand to remind you, and they think they're protecting you, these different aspects of yourself. But to be aware of them and you still move forward
Yeah.
and start to heal those parts and let them know they're okay. I think it's a very helpful way to both understand yourself, the way you operate, what are potential blocks for you, overcome them, and then keep moving forward.
Yes, I think that's a really good point to underscore too for anyone listening is the goal is not to change them or you don't have to like change all your subconscious beliefs for it to be successful for you or for it to work out. That's an ongoing process and it doesn't mean anything about you moving forward. You're on this more of this journey. Yeah. And to bring it back to creativity for a moment too, so much around really tapping into our creativity is letting our younger selves play and be that kid again, like really connecting with our inner child. And I feel like IFS and inner child healing and creativity are all so connected. They're ultimately bringing us back to the same point in a way that's really beautiful and really powerful. And another reason why I feel like so many of us are drawn to creativity as adults is because that is creating healing for ourselves. Like Karen, you said for me and dance in the beginning, even when I didn't realize it, there's so much connection there.
And I want to say, I love what you said about your nails, because I do think that is a really beautiful way of expressing also who you are, right? Like it's this creative exercise each month for you. And it's a way that you're expressing yourself and who you continue to become. It makes me think of people and getting tattoos. It's a creative exercise and expression of who they are. And I think that's probably why you see tattoos more and more, and we have over these however many years. I just never really thought about it.
I never did either.
I never thought of that either that way.
And getting a manicure is a less permanent way.
It's less permanent for sure.
Yeah, some people do it through their clothes, their hair.
Exactly. It reminds me, I was telling Karen this recently, I was able to see these videos of myself from high school. And I'm now 50 years old. We didn't have cell phones and ways to record ourselves so easily. So I really didn't know these existed. But it showed me one of the creative expressions that I had was I always had this draw to wear bright lipstick. And I remember doing it, but seeing it like I did recently of my 17 and 18-year-old self wearing I had like red lipstick on. And that was such a signature. And I'm 50 and I'm still doing that, right? I never lost that because it's like a part, I don't know what calls me to that. And if it helps light something up for me energetically, it must. But it's an interesting thing to look back and see, where are you as an adult, making sure you're connecting with that younger version of yourself.
It's such a good point because I hear in talking with people, sometimes they say, I'm so stuck. I have no idea. I'm not getting nudges. I just feel like in one place, not moving forward. I have no idea where to begin. And I think, Robin, your point is really a great one, to go back to those times when you felt that joyful spirit. You saw that part of yourself that wasn't intimidated, that wasn't so locked into a way of living that it's now hard to move forward. And just start there. Just find those little joyful places and see what comes from remembering those. And then, as you're saying, Brielle, and just see what comes. And I love this idea of, you don't have to worry about the outcome. It's not about reshifting your whole entire life and lifestyle. It's just taking these tiny little steps and following the breadcrumbs and see where they lead.
Yeah, that's really what it is about.
So can you just tell us, if people want to work with you, if they know that there is something and they're not sure how to connect with it, but they want that coaching, what is the best way to work with you for moving forward?
Yes, so I'm always working with clients one-on-one. I have a couple of different private programs that are usually open, or I open them up at different points throughout the year. I do a couple of group programs as well. I have an online course that's open on my website now for anyone who really is interested in how to use kind of what we're talking about around IFS and how you reconnect with yourself as you're going about through your day and bringing your ideas to life. It's called Inner Alchemy. It's a really wonderful course. I usually have a couple of different group programs that I'll run throughout the year too. So the best way is to get on my email list. My website is helloitsbrielle.com. You can sign up right there. And that way you're always getting messages from me around when I'm launching new programs. But if you are interested in working one-on-one, we start before you even come into the container. I have a pretty intensive kind of way for us to connect and to see if you're really right to work with me and I'm really right to work for you. And if not, I will always refer you to someone else I think is better fit for what you need or want. And I have a bunch of free resources too on my site as well, including an energy tracker, which is a great way to start to reconnect with yourself. It's a tool I developed back when I couldn't even tell you what my favorite color was because I felt so disconnected from myself. And like we were speaking about before, my favorite color is the same that I was when I was 6, when I was 15, when I was 18. But in my 20s, I was like, I don't know. I just couldn't even go there. So the energy tracker, you can go and download it right now. I believe the link is helloitsbrielle.com/free gifts. That's a really great one. I have a grounding meditation that's 5 minutes long. You can use that whenever you feel disconnected. It will immediately plug you back into source and plug you back into your inner voice. If you are thinking about something business or entrepreneurial, I have a really great workshop called Scaling with Soul and Spaciousness. You can go on and take that right away. You can use it for business or a creative idea, but this one is more for business. It's all about how to start to put your ideas out there in the world in a way that feels good. So there's no icky strategy. There's no doing something we don't really want to do. It's all about really aligning yourself to what feels right and then bringing in some marketing expertise and some business strategy to do that in a way that's really full.
I
You're
mean,
really using everything, Brielle.
I am using
Amazing.
everything.
you are, and you're still dancing.
And I'm still dancing. I have an adult dance company for women in Los Angeles, and I teach the women that come to me from the ground up. They're very uncomfortable in their bodies when they come. I would say most of my dancers on this team now started from scratch, and we have really worked together over the last couple of years. And anyone can learn to dance. Robin, we're gonna get you into some dance classes.
I agree.
I see you on Dancing with the Stars in the future.
Oh,
Also,
yeah.
just saying that. I feel like that's gonna be there for you.
Oh my
We're
God.
definitely gonna get you into some dance classes. If you're listening to this and you want to do anything creative, you can do it. Dance is all about just having the commitment to show up for yourself and giving your body enough time to practice, right? We need to practice anything and everything, but we do live in, let's say, like a Western or modern society that has just made it easier to practice things on the computer or things with our career that we do all the time. It's made it a little bit easier than like dance and creativity. If you want to do something creative, I highly recommend doing the artist way. It's amazing. And creating some structure for yourself so that every week you are able to just do a little little bit of this creative thing. And after 6 months, after a year, you're going to start to see those things build in a really beautiful way.
I feel like I've learned so much today.
Me too. And I love that this can apply to anyone at any age. I
That's
think
right.
that's the other part. It's
Yeah.
never too late. And if you're someone who's younger listening to this, amazing. You're so inspiring, Brielle. I feel motivated to connect to myself in a different way. And I'm excited to share this with so many others that I know.
You're such a good example too of actually putting it into practice. And the more you do put it into practice, the more you trust yourself.
The more you trust yourself.
You can trust your own soul to lead you.
And I guess the last thing I would add for anyone listening, like I didn't always trust myself. So it's amazing that I can have this conversation with you today. And it's amazing for my younger self is so proud of my current self because she did not believe it was going to work out. I spent many years very afraid, and I'm so grateful that I did find healers and coaches that I worked with and spirituality and communities like the Seeking Center and like this podcast that helped me build that trust. So I just don't want to discount that because I wasn't born this way. Like anyone else, I went on the path. And that is something I have learned through my dance journey as well. I literally went from, I was 23, 24, which is considered very late as a dancer, to take this to a high level. And I didn't know how to dance. I didn't know how to move my body. And now I do, and I saw visually that progression. And so it really opened up, oh, this is what's happening with everything. But yeah, now I'm so grateful to trust myself. But that has been a process and definitely something that's available for everyone.
We know this is the first of many conversations and collaborations, and we're so grateful to be connected, Brielle.
Thank you. So am I.